everybody, to another exciting episode of Multiplayer, the podcast by gamers for gamers. Keha, why are you laughing over there? You got something to say, dude?
I'm just excited, you know. I'm an Uber Eats driver now. Nothing to look down to. Oh, yeah.
All right, well, we're starting with you, Mr. Sandwich Boy himself, Kehan Damavandi.
Hey, guys. How's it going? Great to be here. I'm just happy to be.
What are you? You tired from driving
I'm not
sandwiches
usually
around all day?
I'm trying to force this. I'm not usually this happy, but I'm feeling good right now, guys. I can't complain.
All right, no complaints with Kehan.
Nothing sucks today.
And that's good. That's good. Because right now everybody knows you as the guy that thinks everything sucks. So we're gonna have to fix that. All right. Kehan doesn't know what to say right now. Wake up, Kehan. You got cabinets behind you open. What's going on? Get your life together, dude.
Oh, shit. I really do, don't I?
It's wide open.
That's just for the video, the YouTube watchers out there. They get to see what's going on with Kehan's open cabinets.
His big old kitchen.
Yep. And introducing the lover boy himself, Mr. Javier Ortiz. What's up?
What up, boy? How y'all doing?
I'm good, dude. I'm ready.
Nice. Oh yeah, me too.
Ready to talk about games.
Chilling.
I'm ready to make fun of Kehan's cabinets.
Oh, that's every day.
Oh, they're all shut. They're all fucking shut.
Kehan, while you're in the kitchen, can you go make me a sandwich?
No, I'm not gonna.
And then deliver it.
Then deliver it to me.
If you don't tip, I'll kill you. That's my guarantee.
And make sure you also deliver a sandwich to our boy Joseph Roo.
What's up, guys? Good to be back. Excited.
Shaka bread.
Joe, everyone wants to know, why are you so far away from your camera? Are you shy?
Because it's because this mic is positioned in a way I have to stand this right behind it here, right? But if I was playing games, I would on my if I was playing games on my computer, I'd be a little closer. But unfortunately, the positioning of this microphone is forcing me to stand a little bit more back. But
that's okay.
Yeah.
We forgive you.
As long as y'all can still see me, you know.
Oh, we see you.
That's so
in
funny.
fact, you got more room. You could do a dance for us or whatever.
Yeah.
We've
I
got,
always like the medium shot too. I always like that better. I think you guys are a little too close. I don't want to see your facial features that much, especially Kehan's. My gosh. In fact, Ken, you could go a little
Dude, do you
behind that
see
little
these
closet
lines?
door right
They're
there.
diagonal.
See that little closet right there behind you? That'd be a perfect place for you to do the recording in.
That door. There's no door there. It doesn't have to be closed. There's no door there.
Great. All right. So, what a great intro. Good job, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's our show. Thank you very much. Not just kidding. We have a lot to talk about today. And remember that Multiplayer is all over the place, in your ears and in your face. We are on podcast services around the globe, all over the place.
We're a
I don't
global
know.
enterprise.
We're on the internet. We're accessible.
Joe Rogan, look out.
Go to www.internet.com. And I'm sure you can find us.
I wonder what that URL leads to.
That's actually a great idea. That's a great question.
Safe search off.
Never thought about
internet.com. Here we go.
It just says the
So
internet starts here.
You can find us on
Internet
podcast
starts here. That's
services.
hilarious.
Whatever. Shut up. Everybody shut. I'm hosting. So. It's a great start, everyone. I appreciate you all. So like I said, you can find us on, Google Play, iTunes, all that fun stuff. You can also find us at youtube.com/multiplayer, where you can see what is in Kehan's cabinets every single week. It's going to be a new segment of the show. We're like, Kehan, what's in those cabinets?
Actually, I'm down for that. Yeah.
And then we can also explore what's at www.internet.com. It's going to be part of the show now. Every week, we're going to see what's going on with that website. And, of course, we're going to be talking about games. That's what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know what we were doing previous to that. That was a bunch of nonsense. But here we go, everybody. So, first thing that I'd like to talk about this week. So there are rumors that we might be getting either a Sega Master System Mini or a Sega Dreamcast Mini. And, I got to say, it's probably not going to be the Sega Master System because there's like 10 people that own that console.
Not in Australia.
It's true. And in fact, I think in South America, the Sega Master System was a bit bigger as well, like places like Brazil. I think if I have my facts right. Any Brazilians out there, fact check me on that.
Just places below the equator.
Find me at www.internet.com. You can find me there. Let me know what's going on in Brazil and the Sega Master System. But anyways, so if I had to put some money on this, which I will, I would bet that it's going to be the Dreamcast Mini, which is Sega's last console, and I guess you could say it was a failed console for them. But I honestly think there was some. Man, what a cool system that was for the time that it came out. We talked about it a little bit last week with Microsoft kind of partnering up with Sega to build the operating system for the system, and there were just like some really interesting games and some ideas for that system, like the fact that the memory card was its own little system, which was super cool. You could literally like, you could have chibis from, no, not chibis. What are they called again? Oh gosh,
The Tamagotchi.
Chows.
Oh,
No, chows from
basically a Tamagotchi.
Sonic. Yeah, basically Tamagotchi,
Tamachichis?
but you could have the.
Tamachow.
So you could have your little Tamachichi chows from Sonic Adventure. You could download them onto your memory card and then play it like a little Tamagotchi system. It's like stuff like that that's just like super interesting.
It's pretty crazy.
And weird. It's also kind of the first system to as far as like a home console versus like a computer to really like double down on the internet side of things. There are like several big games like Phantasy Star Online you could kind of play on it. So, in a lot of ways it was like a pretty revolutionary system. And so I just wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit today. And, if anybody has any interesting memories from the Dreamcast. I know you guys are a little younger than me, so you all might have been just little tiny babies. When
We were
when
in
it came out.
diapers.
But, I just wanted to kind of go around the virtual room here and see, what everybody thinks about the Dreamcast and if there's any games from that time that you are fond of and would want to see on a Dreamcast Mini, or if you would even want a Dreamcast Mini. So I think you had a few things to talk about here, so let's start with you.
Yeah, totally. One, I would love a Dreamcast Mini. I think because I think it's such a cool looking system. Compared to what Sega had produced before that, like with the Genesis and the Master System and the Saturn, like I think the Dreamcast looks like the cleanest, and I think it's the only one that's not black, if I'm not mistaken, out of all their consoles.
That is correct.
Yeah, but I would love a Dreamcast Mini because I didn't really have much experience with it growing up as a kid. I think it came out in like 2000, right, or 2001, something like that.
99.
Yeah. So like when that came out, I never had much exposure outside of like seeing it at like a Best Buy or like one cousin I had that owned it. But what I did see of it, I really, really liked, except for like, it was kind of funky because like the controller was like a beefcake of a controller, but it also had like the wire at the bottom for some reason. It's so weird.
That.
It's just like it's just a weird feeling. Like it just didn't make much sense. But outside that, there were lots of games that I really, really wanted to play, and even today I still want to. So I made a little list of the games that I think I have very little experience in, but from what I remember, I absolutely loved. So like Phantasy Star Online, you talked about that. I remember seeing it in like a couple of magazines. But Typing of the Dead is a huge one that I remember seeing. My cousin had it because he also had like, it was the first time I saw a keyboard hooked up to a machine that wasn't a computer. And it was such a weird game. It's like I remember House of the Dead from the arcades.
Yep.
But this one is just you type. It was such a weird experience. It's like, I don't get it. You have to fight zombies because they even carry keyboards like in the game. Like they don't have guns. They have keyboards around. It's so weird. It's such a weird thing. But I have really fond memories of that, mainly because I used to play House of the Dead at the arcades. And then Jet Grind Radio. I don't know if any of you ever heard of that, but it's a really like colorful game where you're just this kid on rollerblades and you go around Japan just tagging stuff like with spray paint, like you're just a tagger. And it's the thing I like about it is the look of it, because it's very colorful, it's very vibrant. I think it's like a cell shady, I think that's the term. Yeah, like Wind
Definitely
Waker.
cell shaded.
Yeah, but it's just a really like pretty game because I loved all the colors. You know, at like 99, I was like what 8-9 years old. So like when I saw that and I just saw this like just screen of different color in front of me, I thought it was really pretty. And it just looked like fun because you not only are you like riding around on rollerblades, but you could like grind on rails and you're trying to like run away from people as they're trying to stop you from tagging stuff. So I just thought it was a really cool concept because it's also like that attitude era of the 90s where you're just like rollerblades, skateboards. Say no to the man. Like it just was really cool. So that's something I'd really like to play if they have a mini. And then two other things. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, which are probably the last greatest Sonic 3D games. Maybe like, yeah, I would say like Sonic Adventure 2 is probably the last best one. But like that introduced
And even that was started to fall apart at the seams.
Yeah. But that opening level for Sonic Adventure 2 it's damn near perfect. But yeah, that's where you got all the Chow and you get to play as a bunch of different characters that weren't Sonic or Knuckles or Tails. Like the first one had like weird characters like Big the Cat, which is just you're just a giant cat with a fishing rod. It's just really weird.
Which is kind of ridiculous. Like it was one thing with like those 3D. Sorry to cut you off in your list, but man, Big the Cat. Like, come on, Sega. Like we we're playing a Sonic game to go fast, and then you make us a fat, stupid cat
who fishes.
Why would you do that? It's like the exact opposite of.
It's like, you know how you want to go fast?
Be doing.
Let's introduce a giant, slow, fat cat who's also doing the slowest, most boring thing you could do, fishing. So it's just like, this is not what I want to do in a Sonic game. And like when they talked in Sonic Adventure 1, like the mouth movements were so weird. Like they would go like like talk like that, like giant. It's super weird, but it's a very fun game. All the cool power ups, and then lastly, this is kind of not an individual game, but the Dreamcast had like the Capcom fighters, and by that I mean like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which to this day is still like. It's just so good. It's such a beautiful looking game. It's so smooth. It's just really fun. Power Stone is another great fighter. And then Street Fighter Third Strike. Like Capcom, they were just in this like, we know how to make fighting games. Like they just like pumped out so many good ones for the Dreamcast, and that's where Soul Calibur started as well, if I'm not mistaken. Although that's not Capcom, but still that's where Soul Calibur like really like took off, because I think it was in the arcade first and then it went to Dreamcast. But like on Dreamcast, like the graphics were better and it was just a better game in general. But the Capcom fighters, I think, like would be so great to have on a mini. Like being able to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2, with you and a buddy, like 1080p, like it would it's such a gorgeous game. And like the roster of characters is so much fun, because it's just like, man, it's like I never thought I'd play a game where it's like I get to play as Mega Man and Doctor Doom. It's just so crazy, but it's super fun. And that at the arcade was a great experience, and then being able to play it at home it's fantastic. So if we do get a Dreamcast Mini, I'd love to see those games on it. And I'm sure there are plenty more. Like I said, I don't have much experience with the Dreamcast. This is just kind of like an outsider's perspective from what I saw when I was younger. But I remember those games like really well, and them like grabbing my attention when I was younger. But also, there was something really cool that I read about the Dreamcast. There was this thing called, or there's a company called Pace. I think it was called Pace Technologies or something. It was like this British company. But like they had this idea of, their whole company was like, they did like cable boxes. Like, remember those back in the day, a cable box?
Oh, yeah.
They did this thing with Sega, like to help save the Dreamcast. They had this idea of making a box that would attach to your Sega, and they wanted to, and Sega really wanted to utilize like internet, and this is why it's a shame, because like I feel like Sega multiple times had really good ideas for the future, but they just didn't execute it well. So like the Sega Nomad, right, is just the Switch, but a '90s version of the Switch. And then the Dreamcast with this Pace Technologies company in the UK, they wanted to make like this box that would attach to the Dreamcast, and they wanted to implement internet streaming of games for like casual gaming market. Like that's how they described it, which is like where the future of video games is going to now. Like people are going to do like with Game Pass and PS Now, like people want to subscribe. So it's less about owning your games and more about just renting, like the Netflix style. But like Sega wanted to do that back in the early 2000s with the Dreamcast and this UK company called Pace. But it was just wrong timing, like it just, the technology wasn't necessarily there. And by the time they wanted to do this team up, the Dreamcast was kind of already dead in the water because of like, poor sales and then the PS2 coming out. But just like everything else involving the Dreamcast, it's a really fascinating like what if story where like on this alternate Earth, Sega would probably be like the best because they've always had these really good ideas. They just haven't been able to execute them, or it was just like poor timing. But I think it would have been really cool. Like, even back then, I think the internet was what, like 56 kilobytes or something, speeds or something like that.
Something right around there.
But like, when you're dealing with games that aren't necessarily large file sizes, like thinking of doing that type of streaming service back then with this like clunky box like connected to your Dreamcast, like it's just like pieces of like a bygone era of technology where it's like things are bigger and like chunkier and a lot slower,
Thick.
but like they're just like these thick boxes, but the ideas were there, right? Like the idea of streaming games, the ideas of like having a game downloaded, because that box would also have like a hard drive on it. And I think the article I read said like they plan to make it like a 60 gig hard drive, which is like back then like plenty for games.
Damn.
But like the idea of like,
back then
that would have been
that's
huge.
That's a
back
huge
then.
drive.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it was like this big chunky box that you'd hook up to your Dreamcast. Yeah. But like it's all these things, for the Dreamcast that are such good ideas, but they just never happened because like a lot of things in Sega's history when it comes to consoles, it just wasn't executed, or just like poor timing, or they got beat out by somebody else. Like, and it's a shame because a lot of the ideas they had were really good. Like again, like the Sega Nomad is just, it's the Switch, but from the 90s, But anyway, like I thought that was really interesting, and those games I'd love to see on Dreamcast Mini, and I would love to. If that's really one thing I'd like to re-experience, like if for the Dreamcast to like come out again, like if I were to live in that era, like me today, going back in like 2000 or 99 and witnessing the Dreamcast for the first time and like learning about all these things, I think it'd be super cool to see all that like for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. When I was when the Dreamcast came out, I was in that kind of middle school age, and the Dreamcast was super exciting to me. I mean, there were games coming out for that I mean, they look stunning at the time. It's that was kind of the first kind of next gen console. You know, when everybody thinks like GameCube, PS2, Xbox, they kind of leave out the Dreamcast. Dreamcast, and I misspoke earlier. The Dreamcast actually came out November of '98. So
Okay.
it kind of 2 and 3 years prior to some of these other consoles. PS2 came out in 2000, I believe, or tail end of '99, one or the other. And the Dreamcast is more powerful than the PS2, and could go toe to toe with those other consoles easily. But it's just, it just kind of fell apart for them, which is a shame. That console just had like really interesting ideas, and Sega's always kind of been ahead of the curve as far as power in consoles and just like interesting ideas with their consoles. They even from the days of like Sega Genesis and being a 16-bit console when it came out is pretty wild, and then just kind of going into like Sega 32X and the Sega CD kind of before like anybody else had really figured that out to a point it was executed well, to the Saturn and what it could do with like really beefy like 2D sprites and stuff. It was just just a very interesting company and what they could do, and I want to go through this list that I have of just like amazing games I think are for this system. And honestly, I'll start just kind of going off what you were saying, Hav. I'm gonna go with just the fighting games first, because this thing is like a fighting game machine when you really think about it. Yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom, which is an amazing game. Power Stone, which is basically, it's kind of like Smash Brothers. It's a lot of fun. I love Power Stone 1 and 2. Those games are amazing. Soul Calibur, which is like phenomenal. I mean, they had such a good like 3D fighting game. I love that series. Virtua Fighter 3.
That's right.
And then there's Dead or Alive. So it's like all these fighting games. And Street Fighter. So it's like you have like all these fighting games just on this one console, and it's just and they're all like fantastic fighting games.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be because of like the arcade era, right? Because like back then, like before the consoles, video games was mostly played in arcades, and I would assume that the most popular games in arcades were fighting games at the time.
Oh yeah.
Right. So
yeah. So
and Sega had a lot of arcade games as well.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So Sega, they're big and still are like a big arcade company with arcade cabinets, and I think they just struck a lot of good deals with other developers that were developing arcade games. So they got a lot of those like arcade fighting games. For like I said, and Tekken's on there too. Tekken 2, I believe. So it's like you have Tekken, you have Dead or Alive, you have, you have them all.
Yeah,
it's like every fighting game series other than Mortal Kombat, which I'm assuming is on there, but that started to get into like the poopy era of Mortal Kombat, where the games, they couldn't figure out 3D for the longest time, so their games weren't that good. But on top of those games, you have Jet Set Radio, kind of like what you were saying, Hav, which is like pretty awesome. You have Skies of Arcadia, which is like an amazing RPG.
Oh, yeah.
You have Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, which are like super fun, silly, like arcade driving games. You had Resident Evil 2, 3, and Code Veronica.
Code Veronica.
You have Soul Reaver, which I think is like a fantastic game. The Unreal Tournament port for the console for Dreamcast was like really, really good. Man, I love Unreal Tournament. Like that game was so good back in the day. And then you have a ton of sports games that were for the console. That you have like kind of the start of the 2K series of games. So you have like that whole line of like 2K, NBA and 2K football and all that. You also have Virtua Tennis, which is like actually a really, really good tennis game. I'm not even like a big tennis guy other than like Mario Tennis, but Virtua Tennis is like fantastic. And then you have there's a couple games I never really played, but I know people speak very highly of them, like Fantasy Star Online, the Shenmue series, and Icaragua.
I remember
So,
the Shenmue series, like, I remember the look of it, because I remember seeing, like, pictures, and I was like, oh my god, graphics will never be better than this. Like, to me, it just looked so real back then. And even back, like, it's going back then, like, very good graphics for the time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of games I kind of felt that way with the Dreamcast. A lot of those fighting games, like, I mean, something like Soul Calibur or Dead or Alive, I mean, looked stunning on that console for the time. So before we move on, Kahan, Joe, I know you guys didn't have too much experience with the console, but be interested to hear if you guys have anything to say about it.
I played a few games at friends' houses because they had the Dreamcast. So I played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was one of them. Mainly, what was it? Not Soul Calibur I played a few times, but wasn't it what was the other fighting game called? Not Virtua Fighter, or was it Virtua Fighter?
I don't know.
Probably Virtua Fighter.
Probably Virtua Fighter. It was Virtua Fighter. It was the goofy one where you can like punch people through walls before Tekken did that. I think it was Virtua Fighter. Because they had the offstage thing where if you kick people, like it's like Soul Calibur, but it was a different game. I remember. Oh, Dead or Alive. Was it Dead or? I think it was Dead or Alive. That one.
Yeah, I mean, if you're kicking people through walls,
yeah,
it's
Dead or
probably
Alive.
Dead or Alive.
That game was really fun. Actually, that was like my favorite thing because at the time, I think Soul Calibur probably did that, but the idea of like knocking someone off a stage and then like continuing the fight still seems so cool. Usually it was like I think Soul Calibur they just do a ring out. Yeah. I think Dead or Alive is the only one where you can like punch people through boundaries at the time and you continue the fight like a movie. That's what I thought was really cool because the graphics I didn't even think they were that amazing at the time compared to like or I didn't like him more than Tekken, but the fact that you can like punch people in a combo against the wall and then break them through the wall and then keep fighting. Oh, and then Crazy Taxi, another game that I liked a lot in the arcade. Just because you can like just run over people and just basically do what I do, but just as a dirty criminal. You're just like fucking. And then
I love in Taxi Driver too because you could do as crazy of a ride as you want, and when you get them there, they're like, "Thanks for the ride," or like, "Thanks for the great ride," or something
as long as you're fast, they don't give two shits. The whole way they're like, but as soon as you park, you're like, "Thanks," and you get out of the car.
NPCs were a little bit more tolerable back then.
Yeah,
they're simpler times.
Yeah, it's funny because arcade machines, I think it's like just so that sensory overload of like everyone having the most extreme reactions like an anime where as soon as you start driving they're like take a left, calm down, and then you just like like hook a left down the corner.
The music is like super like fast beat
like punk like Tony Hawk. Also Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 was on the Dreamcast. I love that game too. I played that on a lot. Those old school when they were good. Hate to say this in case we get sponsored by Tony Hawk in the future.
Oh yeah.
But those
of
games
all the sponsors
now. Yeah, they were so good back in the day. The first like I think 2 or 3, I forget. There was like an underground game that was okay, but the first 2 that was like nostalgia. Playing that on the N64 and the Dreamcast in McDonald's. McDonald's had those PlayStations, the centers where I get food, and my dad's like, "You want to go to McDonald's to play video games?" And I'm like, "Dad, like, shut up. Like, let me go eat." It was so much fun. But yeah, the punk music too back then. That was like the era of all those like fast-paced punk music. That might have got me into metal. Thanks, McDonald's. But
I think Jet Set Radio or Crazy Taxi also had like, did they have like those kind of soundtracks?
Similar soundtracks. They might have had the same bands, different songs, honestly, because they were pretty similar.
Yeah. It's
weird. Like, I don't want to do homework. Just want to drive fast. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 actually has that like, let's go angsty teen.
They had the angsty music as well. Fast, Oh my god.
Praise the Lord, and it's like very subliminal. Very
praise the Lord.
Rebellious Christian rock.
Run the red light. Praise His name. One last thing. Sonic the Hedgehog. One more thing. Was it they had the old school one, not the fighter one, but they had the other one, didn't they? They had Sonic like I had it on my phone. It was like Sonic 3 or Sonic 2, not the fighter arena one. Let me see. It was Sonic.
Sonic 2 and 3 were on the Genesis.
Oh my God, there's so many games.
And then the Sonic Adventure series was on Dreamcast because that was like the
Sonic
3D.
Adventure 2. Maybe that was Sonic Adventure 2. Never mind. I'm thinking of Sonic Adventure 2. But yeah. Anyways, those Sonic games were good before they became bad. So that's the last thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I still have my Sonic Adventure 2 because they put it on GameCube. I still have
Yeah.
that disc. It's so much fun.
That fighting game's crazy. The combos you can pull off, and it's just it's weird how floaty it is though. How you go like 90 miles an hour, and then you like and you have to like turn around. Actually, it's pretty accurate how it would be. Actually, never mind. That is good. Yeah. So, yeah.
Joe, any final thoughts on the Dreamcast?
I never actually even held a Dreamcast before. I've only seen pictures. Yeah, but I'll tell you what. I didn't know any friends who had it either. In terms of like my circle of video game culture back then, it was only Nintendo and like PlayStation and Xbox, right? Your typical. I'll tell you what though, we did own a Sega Game Gear, the handheld console one.
Yep.
Right. So that was the only Sega device I ever had, and I was able to play the classics like Mortal Kombat and Sonic. I believe those are the only two games we had on that, because it was just like it was like a hand-me-down Game Gear. Like we didn't even buy it, so like I remember just kind of like fooling around on it for a bit, and it was cool. Like I probably spent a good amount of time playing those games trying to beat like Mortal Kombat, because Mortal Kombat was like a very difficult game, and
Sure.
But in terms of all those other games you guys mentioned, like I only really played those in arcades. Like Marvel vs. Capcom, I played in arcades. Like Tekken and all this stuff was through the arcade, and like maybe through PlayStation. Unfortunately, I never really the Sega consoles never got into my life. They never like found its way into like my video game life. So
sounds like
I don't have much
need a
nostalgia for
Dreamcast
it.
Mini.
Yeah. But I mean, I do like the fact that like Hav gave me Hav mentioned that they a little bit of history about them. Very interesting, I thought, was the fact that they were trying to utilize like internet streaming in the first place, or even like internet connection, through console gaming, because that concept of playing online video games didn't even really hit me until like how genius that was, until maybe like, I don't want to even say Xbox Live, like before that, because there was like online, there's like internet games and stuff you could play like on the internet, but like connecting your console to the internet didn't really occur to me how like good of an idea that was until Xbox Live, which is, I know, relatively late, right? But the fact that you're telling me that like Sega was like trying to do that way back in the 90s, or maybe like early 2000s, is tells me that like, yeah, like that sucks that like, I think it really is about the timing, right? Because like no one even knew the capabilities of the internet in terms of, especially for video games, so like even if they did successfully create a product that would like have you connect to the internet through these games and maybe like stream them, like where's your viewership, where's your audience? Like no one was, if people are already having a tough time accepting video games as like an entertainment culture now, a form of entertainment, of watching like Twitch streaming and stuff, people are still having a tough time like accepting that. Like I couldn't even imagine what these old geezers would say back then. Yeah.
Boomers.
Don't talk about me like that.
Boomer.
It's just like it would.
All right.
It's very interesting. So I'm glad you shared that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's and like one last thing. It's like, it's interesting to think about like what caused like the Dreamcast ultimate demise, right? Is like the PS2 with the DVD player, right? Because that was like, oh my god, it's a game and it's a DVD player. Like that's why it's the greatest selling console of all time. It'll never be beaten, because it's like that era of technology. Mm-hmm. And it's like Sony banked on home video, like DVD, and Sega was hoping the internet would surpass that, and they were right technically.
It just a bit early.
It just happened. Yeah, they were just too early to the too early to the punch kind of thing. Like they didn't get. It's just the timing. It's like, it's such a weird thing. It's like,
it reminds me of like how James Cameron like had the idea for like Avatar like way back in the 90s, but he knew that if he made that movie back then, it would like do terrible. So he had to literally like wait till like 2008 or 10 to like film, to like wait until the technology was able to keep up with his vision.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
And
crazy.
then that's why
when-
it was such a good success. He patiently waited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after he
Which is like,
saw after he saw Pocahontas: The Last of the Mohicans, he's like, I have an
Yeah.
idea, and then
Yeah, he was like,
wait.
he's like, my idea keeps getting taken. I got to do it now.
yeah. He's like, everyone just stop.
Not to give any
Just
praise to that movie because I actually fucking hate that movie, but
the visuals
but I'm
are
just saying
so
as,
good.
in terms
but,
of marketing, like he knew how to play the waiting game, you know?
yeah, it's crazy because the visuals are so good, but the story is one of the most tired stories in all of cinema
Oh
history.
my god, dude!
But it's
it's such
the amount of
fucking
visual
overdone
money
movie.
that was wasted makes. Anyways,
Yeah.
it's not-
All right, not to change subjects. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's kind of timing's everything, and yeah, Sega was always like a little too early with a lot of their ideas. So it's just kind of it's interesting. It's interesting to kind of like reflect on that stuff and kind of going off of thinking about games from the past. Our next topic this week, I wanted to talk a little bit about Sony. Sony announced that just about every game, other than like 10 games nobody's ever really played, will be backwards compatible from PS5 or on PS5 from the PS4. So pretty much you can pop in a disc, or if you download the game onto your PS4 already, you can play it on your PS5. You just have to re-download it. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. You have all your PS4 games. So that's pretty great.
That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, it's real nice. I'm glad that because but one of my things is with backwards compatibility, because a lot of people ask for it, but I don't think a lot of people actually use it in execution. But the reason that I like it and I prefer it in my systems is just for the sake of video game preservation. We get to a pretty much like every generation, a lot of times we just lose games, and it's kind of hard to go back and play something. I think about, say I've been playing Mario 64, which is great that I have that game, but there's a version of that game, Mario 64 DS, that you could play as Wario and
Yoshi.
Luigi and Yoshi, and that game's just trapped on the DS, and we might never see that game again.
Just wait
Like
for the
if you
DS
wanted to
Mini.
go and play that, yeah, it's like if you want to go and play that game, it's gonna be super hard to go and play it unless you're a weirdo like me and you just have every console.
I have it.
And yeah,
Yours
I
is
mean,
so
so
weird.
a bunch of weirdos over here. But like, for anybody that just wants to go and try out a library of games, sometimes it's just difficult now. There's hurdles involved. Even with emulation, there's still hurdles. So it's just it's sometimes it's tough, but it's nice that at least with because the PS4 has just an absolutely mind-bogglingly good library. Like, it's fantastic. Like the the games that they were able to crank out over the last 5 or so years for that system. It's amazing. So I wanted to ask it, and Hav, I think you had a couple things you wanted to mention here, but basically wanted to say, are there any PS4 games that once you get around to getting your PS5 that you'll want to revisit, or games maybe you never got a chance to play on the PS4 that you'd like to take a crack at on the PS5? I know for me, for instance, Bloodborne is still on that list for me. I want to play Bloodborne.
It's so good.
I just haven't done it yet. It's on my list. Going to play it on the PS5 eventually. I promise. Hav, what do you got for me?
It's tough, mainly because I've played so many of the PS4 games, because it's been it's probably the console that's lasted the longest in my household, because it's just been out for feels like 10 years. Even though they did the Pro, it's still the same thing, right? You can play the same games.
Yeah.
But a couple games I'd really like to go back to once the PS5 comes out. One, I'd really like to play through Arkham Knight again, because Arkham Knight is it has issues with the Batmobile and everything, but aside from that,
Miss those tank missions?
yeah.
You want to go back to tank missions?
it's besides that, it's actually a very, very gorgeous game to look at. And that's one of the early PS4 games. Like you go back to it and you play it on a PS4 Pro or like just look at screenshots of the regular PS4 playthrough. It is freaking very pretty. It's a very beautiful game. Like it's gorgeous. So playing that on like a PS5, like cut down load times and whatever, all that stuff, like that'd be really cool. Same thing with Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man. Even though his face will be different for some reason, they wanted to do that. But besides that, again, like to cut down on load times, it'll make that game like even more seamless, which to me that's like the biggest thing about playing PS4 games on the PS5 is to just cut down load times. So like Bloodborne, amazing. It'd be great to cut down on load times. Like Horizon Zero Dawn, same thing. Like all these great games, it's like, load times, it's like 30 seconds, which in hindsight, it's not really that big of a deal. But when you're playing the game, you're just like, oh my God, this takes so long. Hurry. So yeah, like Arkham Knight is really my biggest one. I'd love to play through that game again on a bigger screen, on a better console, just stronger. Because I think it's just gorgeous. It's just such a good looking game, and I haven't played it in a really long time because it was one of the early games for this past generation, current gen. I don't know how you want to describe it, but like it was one of the earlier games, so it'd be really cool to play through that again, or just like the whole Arkham series, really. Because I have like the Arkham bundle on my PS4, so like being able to play through all of them on the PS5, I think would be pretty tight.
Yeah, I think that's a good choice.
Hell yeah.
Kayhan, what you got for me, dude?
I'm always a fan of, backwards compatibility, no matter what. Since I have like a gaming laptop, gaming PC, I'm not better than everyone. I'm just like, on another level of just when I use emulators.
This jabroni.
It's using emulators is the funnest thing. Even on my phone, I had like, I forget what it's called, the Dolphin for the GameCube, like the Dolphin emulator or something. I'm a big fan of that just because I don't like buying a game and then knowing, oh, in 5 years, I'm never going to be able to play this again. Like if the console breaks, I'm going to have to either buy an overpriced console or I'm not going to be able to play again ever. Because I had a few Game Boy Advance games that I lost. And now through emulation, I can play it on my phone. So if PS4, and when they go to PS5, if they do that for all these games, then I can at least like, carry forward my games without having to worry about buying the PS4 again if it breaks down or something or doing repairs. Also, they make more money because if it's backwards compatible, say if there's like a PS5 remaster you don't want to pay extra money for, you can always go back and buy the PS4 version that's cheaper and like trash price, and you can just use it on the PS5. So like the Kmart special, the blue light special. I don't see why they don't do that. It's like Nintendo. It's like, hey, you have an opportunity to make more money on games that you don't even update anymore. The games are finished. You don't update them. Just just give us the game. Let us pay you. And they're like, no, like. I'm not even going to rant. But yeah, that's it.
We've established many times that Nintendo hates money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's such an easy way to make money. If they just like make things backwards compatible, I don't know. Maybe I should look into specifics on what makes it difficult for them to do that. Like what limits the hardware? Like why does it limit the hardware when they try and do that? Because it always seems like they always bring up hardware as the issue of like, oh, we can't make it backwards compatible.
I think it's like operating systems.
Really? Okay. They should suck it up and just do it. Like they're gonna make more money. If they make it seem like they're doing it for free, they're doing us a favor. It's like we're trying to pay you money, and they're like, but it'll take time and effort. It's like, just do you want this? And like, I guess. And they just like we're making another sequel to freaking Uncharted. It's like just. Anyways, I'm done. That's it. Just do it. Just do it, you freaks. Just do it.
Just do it.
The new Nike logo. Yeah.
All right. So Kayhan thinks everything sucks. Joe, any thoughts?
Let's see. To answer the original question about PS4 games that I would like to see.
I didn't answer the first question. I just missed that.
I would say Uncharted series. I was a big fan of. I'd like to also maybe see the first what is it called? Last of Us game again. Even though that was on the PS3, but you could bring
HD
that back.
remake.
Yeah, exactly. If you could bring that back, that'd be just it's just like to me, it's just like a video game. Those are like video game movies, I mostly play it for like, I literally play it on easy mode because I don't want to like spend any time longer in like a level than I need to. And I like to experience the story like I'm a movie character. You know, that's why I really like those franchises. Other than that, I really don't mind the idea of, at first I was a little, I think older me or younger me would say that like, backwards compatibility is like not just like a privilege, but like a right, you know? Like I feel like the video game companies I would say the video game companies owe it to the users to have their newest consoles be backwards compatible for the sake of just like, you know, being able to all those games they invested in on the previous console, they should still be able to use it, you know? That should be a right, you know? And I don't know, in a weird way I still kind of believe that, but I also get from the business aspect, right? You need to like, especially for video games, I think particularly it's not like movies where you could just like keep it, you know? Or, I mean, it is, I mean, for collectors, you know, or like people like, you know, like nerds like us, we obviously will keep these games, many of these games for life. You know, like many like people who love films will keep their DVDs and stuff, even though DVDs aren't really used anymore, right? But it's that physical, you know, like connection you have with a specific game. But in terms of for like the business, you know, I see why like companies don't want that to happen. You know, they need to like it's an industry that thrives on like the new, right? That's what keeps the money going, you know? And of course there are games like the nostalgic games that we will pay money, you know, like Mario 3D All-Stars, we will pay money because we just like want to play that game again, right? But it's not, I think it's not a sustainable like business model to keep relying on like, you know, trying to keep like the traditional stuff alive, you know? And I get that in a way. So that's why I'm a little bit more lenient towards like, you know, if like the PS5, if they decided to make the PS6 basically not backwards compatible to PS4 games anymore or PS3, like that would make sense to me, you know?
Sure.
Boo. Just my 2 cents on it, though.
Boo.
Yeah. I'm just gonna leave.
All right, so basically, kind of on this topic of backwards compatibility. Kind of wanted to get into some old news with it. So, you know, I started to think about backwards compatibility, and I was like, what systems throughout the history of the gaming industry have actually had backwards compatibility? And I knew, you know, most of them off the top of my head, but I wanted to kind of dig deep on this, and I found a couple interesting things. So I wanted to kind of go through this. So let's go through the gaming history for a second, as far as, you know, systems that are backwards compatible and systems that should have been backwards compatible and just weren't. And it was kind of like I think a weird call, but for some reason worked out. So anyway, so first off, I don't know how much you guys know about, like, you know, the really, really old systems, but basically starting in 1972, anybody know that first system that released? Very first video game system?
The Jaguar.
The Jaguar. That came out in 94.
Is it the Odyssey or something like that?
Was it the one?
Oh yeah, that's my boy.
Like
Yeah.
Yeah, so Hobbs got it. So the Magnavox Odyssey came out in 1972. It was the first system to release. So, and then the second console to that, the Odyssey 2, came out in 78. Was not backwards compatible though. It was like working off of totally different types of like. The first system had these like weird chips that you would plug in. The second system actually had like cartridges. In 1977, that's when the Atari 2600 came out, and, you know, they were crushing it for a while. And eventually, 1982 comes around, and it is backwards compatible, but you had to buy an adapter for it. So, you kind of have that going on. But kind of at that time, a bunch of other consoles are kind of coming out and trying to take Atari's lunch, so like the Intellivision, ColecoVision, all that kind of stuff starts to come out, and eventually in 1984, that's when Atari comes out with the Atari 7800, which is like fully backwards compatible with the Atari 2600 console. So it was something like right out of the box, this will work with like all your games from the 2600. Because I don't think the 5200 sold too well. It was kind of like a weird guy for them. So I kind of see the Atari 7800 as like the first official backwards compatibility system. So that's 1984 when that came out. So that's like right before the big video game industry crash. It kind of happened just right after that, but that was like their last ditch effort. Like, here's the new system, like our 8-bit system, but you can also play all your Atari 2600 games on it. So, that was basically them trying to they were trying to figure out like how to make new games, but also like not lose the people that bought an Atari 2600 and had all these games that wanted like maybe to buy a new console, but they didn't want to. They didn't, they purchase all these damn games. They want to play them,
right?
Yeah.
So that was basically kind of the first time a company was trying to figure that out, where it's just like, okay, how do we do this? And then from there, obviously the NES comes out, 1985. Sega Master Systems, 1986, and then Genesis comes out in 1988. And when the Sega Genesis comes out, one of the big things they did right off the bat is they made an adapter to be backwards compatible. So it's like, if you bought a Sega Master System, you can play all your Master System games, which are, basically 8-bit games competing with the NES, but also we're a 16-bit system. So you got your Sonic, you got, your Golden Axe, all that fun stuff. So that was kind of like, but once the Genesis got really popular, they kind of stopped selling what they called the power base converter, which is their backwards compatibility converter. And 1989, the Game Boy comes out. And I think the Game Boy is like sort of the first console that sort of did it right for backwards compatibility. I mean, that you could play Game Boy games from 1989 all the way to like basically 2004 when the DS came out and you couldn't play those games anymore. So, basically like 11, 12, 13 years, you could have your Game Boy games. I mean, technically you could still play them. But it's just as far as like the cutoff date for like, we're going to stop, making systems that are compatible with these games. So, I think the Game Boy is kind of the champion when it comes to this, where it's like, Game Boy came out. It's like, you can play it on your Game Boy. You can play it on your Game Boy Color. You can play it on your, GBA. You can play it on your GBA SP. Play your Game Boy games.
That's what I was going to say
was
my favorite system for backwards compatibility. Like PS2 and PS1 were good, but Game Boy Advance with Game Boy, just another level.
Great. Yeah.
It's like, hold on, I could play Pokemon Yellow and then play like Pokemon
like Sapphire.
Ruby or Sapphire. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
And like all the Mario games, and Game Boy also had like all the Super Nintendo ports, so you could play like Donkey Kong Country 2 on your Game Boy Advance. Like it's just that step up.
That was such a simple setup too. Yeah.
Yeah,
all
dude,
it was like, whoa, like you can literally just like attach it, and it was just so genius. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
the whole.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like the Wii backwards compatibility was probably one of my favorites, because
that was good too.
That one was really good, but even then, like, I just did not like the setup of the Wii. It was so like just too many wires and just too much. Like, it was a cool idea and everything, but like
too many different parts.
Yeah.
I hate the stupid what's the thing called?
The
where
sensor
it's,
thing
like,
you got to put on
the
the
sensor
TV.
bar?
Yeah.
Always falls off.
Yeah,
It's
the
just like
line.
another. It's just another thing you have to like worry about.
It's like a little
another
thin
wire
strip.
attach.
The wire is heavier than the fucking
Yeah.
strip. So if that thing moves a little bit, it's like
It always falls.
it's so
But-
stupid.
But the setup of being able to play like Wind Waker on your Wii is just so good. Until for some reason they designed a new Wii that didn't have GameCube controller ports. Never understand that decision. But
that's what I'm saying. They
the Wii
started
Mini. It's
like
very
changing like the hardware or like the UI in a way where they can't make it backwards compatible because they just change fundamentally how the machine like works when you plug it in and shit. They like change the ports. They change. I don't know why. That's what I'm saying. Game Boy also for me, my favorite thing again, because as you say, like for like like a damn near decade or more, they're just like you can play anything you want, and they even have the adapters in case the cartridges are different. They have the adapters. They have like all these little plugs, and then Nintendo's like.
I
Did it
remember.
also like how did it know though to like how could it tell the difference between like a small disc and like a big disc? Like you just pop the small disc anywhere.
the Wii?
And, like and it just like played it. You're just like,
just
all
like,
right,
I don't
magic.
know.
It's called
The
Magic,
works.
Joe.
I
It
guess.
reads like it reads like two codes, and it's like I think this is fucking Wind Waker. There's like some wave code here. Like,
I always
fuck
thought that
it.
was amazing. I was like, I'm putting a small disc in a big slot and it's gonna read it. Like that's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like my grandma used to play. Like she had a Nintendo and she had a Game Boy Advance because she really liked Super Mario Brothers, 1, 2, and 3. Like those were the only games she played, and like this weird Moses game on NES. But on Game Boy Advance, I remember like during the summer when I'd have to go to her place, like during summer vacation, she would have her Game Boy Advance, and like if I ever forgot my Game Boy at home that day, like I always had like my bag of games, so I'd bring my games, like my Game Boy Advance and my Game Boy games with me, and like I could always play any of them because she had a Game Boy Advance. So whenever she wasn't playing it, like I would play it, and I'd be like, oh, now I could play anything from Tetris to like Super Mario Advance 2. Like it was
And then
just
to go from the Game Boy Advance to the Game Boy SP where you didn't need
dude,
you could charge it.
Dude.
Oh, that was such a great. That was a great change.
That's still my favorite looking.
And it has
mini.
a light too. The light and the charging was like, mwah,
Yeah.
just, mwah.
Yeah, chef's
Beautiful.
kiss.
Yeah, the Game Boy Advance was so trash because you try and play that in like a too bright of an area or too dark. You
I was
can't
like, I
see
can play this
shit.
in the dark. Like,
Yeah.
That I
was
also love.
amazing.
I love the flipping aspect of the SP. Like
Yeah.
it's to me, it's still one of the
Was
cleanest
that
looking.
before flip phones?
No, that was like
No, it
right
was-
at the time of
it
flip
was-
phones. That was like
it was
during
in that
flip
era.
phones.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought that'd be so cool if they were the first ones to do that and they like created
But
it.
I loved it. Like it's just this mini little.
Like the little
and you just-
laptop. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that thing. It was
Yeah.
very cool.
Just to take it back a little bit, so basically that clamshell design, the first handheld to have that is actually the Game & Watch.
Yeah.
Some of the Game & Watches, which
It
is basically the first
Shout out.
Game & Watch was coming out from like 1980 to like 1990, 1991. They had a bunch of them. And some of them had that clamshell design.
It looks like
But
the DS.
once again, yeah, exactly. Some of those did look like the DS, but those were all those games are like stuck on. It's one game per system essentially. There's like old LCD kind of, or not LCD, but just those old school kind of like electronic games. So it's like one game per console. So those are kind of trapped on there. And then kind of going with like the Nintendo consoles, they sort of like their handhelds are crushing it as far as like backwards compatibility. And then it's like, the NES to the Super Nintendo, like for some reason they didn't, make it backwards compatible, which is weird because it's like NES was, it sold super well. You had all these amazing games. You would think they would want to, push that, further with the SNES, but they're like, nope, stopping right here, moving on.
Well, it's weird
Going with
because
the
like
Super Nintendo.
it's weird because like the Japanese and like European versions of the NES and Super Nintendo, like they look a lot alike.
Yeah.
Whereas the American versions look nothing alike. So it's just like even if they did do it, I wonder how like that would work because it's like here's your VCR box Nintendo, here's your weird. I don't even know how to describe it. With Super Nintendo,
Abomination.
this purple and gray thing, like
Yeah.
and they look nothing alike. So it's like, it's even weird. Like the Famicom, the Super Famicom, like that would make sense. Like you could see it working if they did some sort of backwards compatibility. But like the NES to Super Nintendo American, it's just like one monstrosity to the other. It's like how would they do that?
I don't know. But it just seems like an odd choice to me anyways. And
Yeah.
then obviously, Super Nintendo to the N64, they didn't. N64 obviously to the GameCube, they didn't. And then finally with the Wii, they're like, all right, we'll let you play your GameCube games. And then
Probably because it didn't sell well.
Yeah,
probably. And then it's with the, with the Wii U, they let you play Wii games. And then Switch, they basically just start all over again. So it's like they're all over the place on that side, but like the handheld side, they're crushing it. With the Game Boy all the way through, the GBA, and then like the DS, you could basically play DS games all the way through. Yeah. Or actually, you could play GBA games on your DS. Yeah. And then like you could play DS games on your 3DS. So it's like they've had pretty good backwards compatibility on the handheld side. And then as far as like, companies like Sony go, Sega basically never did any backwards compatibility other than that the Genesis and Master System. They kind of dropped the ball after that. And then, you have Sony who, with the PS2, you could play PS1 games, I believe.
Yeah, you could.
And then with the PS3, like the early models of the PS3, you could play PS2 games. And then with any model of the PS3, you can actually play PS1 games, which is kind of cool.
Yep.
You just need the disc. And then PS4, they're like, nah, screw you guys. And then PS5, they're like, all right, I guess you can play your PS4 games. So, and then Microsoft, they're trying to make every game backwards compatible right now.
Which would be cool. That'd be good.
Yeah, I love that idea of like, here's your OG Xbox game. Just plug it into your new Series X and it works.
Yeah.
So, they kind of get the prize, like the gold prize for like trying to make everything of theirs backwards compatible. Then again, they've been in the game less than everybody else, so it's like,
more power to them for doing it.
Yeah, it's like, as far as technology goes, it's like trying to get something like the original Xbox, which is basically a computer, to emulate onto what is still just like a Microsoft computer.
I think that's the biggest difference. Is like software side, like it's Microsoft. Like all there's you can, Microsoft.
They still have Bing. Bing is still.
Hey,
it hasn't died somehow. Bing.
Microsoft might not be the cool company, but they're definitely still a good company.
Yeah, they're still smart. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. But anyway, so I just wanted to kind of go through some of that history. It's just kind of interesting. You look at basically about 40-ish years that the gaming industry's kind of been around, 40 give or take, where people have been trying to figure out this backwards compatibility thing, and some people have just like, every company has tried it a little bit. At least have like dipped their toe in and like, all right, we'll give you like this system or something. But I feel like that, like nobody's figured it out completely yet. Microsoft's getting close, but it's just kind of interesting to kind of look through history and see like what different companies were trying and like when they were trying it, which is kind of the biggest thing. You could see like kind of like the companies that were always like the big winners in. Like in a generation where like the ones not trying to do that kind of stuff, and the losers are trying to like, or the people that are not selling as well. It's like maybe we try something like this and do a little backwards compatibility or something. Trying to do something nice for the customers. But anyway, so it's just kind of interesting to sort of look through that history and see like what different companies were doing at different times and like what worked and what didn't work. But yeah, that's that.
Yeah, you never beat that Game Boy, man.
Compatibility. Yeah, I know. I mean, the Game Boy. That's like I gave the gold medal to Xbox, but I think the Game Boy deserves like a nice silver runners up medal or something.
I mean,
what a fantastic library.
I think it. I think it stands like to share the gold just because of the library, like you mentioned.
No, it has to share the gold. They did it for so long too.
Long.
They were very.
That's 10 years worth of.
And then they somehow hit their head and forgot, and then they kept like turning it on and off. And every other generation, they're just like, I guess we won't do it this year.
It's interesting now because like now Nintendo doesn't have a handheld system.
Yeah,
it's weird. They forgot. They forgot they were good at that.
I think I'm glad they don't, because honestly, like there was a certain point when like the handheld, like the newest DS and stuff was out at the same time as like the iPhone like 10 or not 10 or iPhone like 7 or 6 or something, right? And at that point they were literally competing with like mobile gaming, right? So like I can see why like Nintendo was like, look, like handheld this whole idea of like the handheld like DS and stuff and like the Game Boy, like it's not gonna be sustainable. It's not gonna be able to compete in like the mobile gaming market anymore. So I like the fact that they basically just like combined like their portability with the console, aspect of it, and which is the Switch now. And like now I can just see them moving forward with only the Switch. Like no more Game Boys or DSs anymore. Kind of sad to say that, right? Because
I don't mind. They should just go back to make
at the
it
same
backwards
time,
compatible.
like to compete with this market and to make it like like the Switch was a genius idea. They killed it. Like everyone wants a Switch because it's portable and because it's like a console. And that's really they're just thinking about the future, and I really commend their adaptability to the change. So
and yet
for them.
Sega did it first with the
Yeah.
Sega Nomad.
Nintendo sucks.
I'm telling you,
Nintendo.
it's just the timing.
It's all about that timing. All about that timing.
PSP.
And
I
speaking
still
of
like
timing,
better,
shut up. Shut up. Speaking of, I'm trying to segue here. Speaking of timing, that is our show. We are out of time.
For sure.
Kahan.
Oh,
Jeez.
I didn't get to say what I
Back
was
in that little
playing.
closet there.
yeah. We're out of time.
All right, very very quick, very quick. Hav, tell us what you're playing. Very quick.
Okay, 2 games. Super Mario 35, a lot of fun, good online
Yeah.
battle royale thing, and 2, Donkey Kong Country 2 because it's on the Super Nintendo online thing on the Switch.
Oh,
Just I haven't played it in years.
that's one with Diddy
Perfect.
Kong, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
perfect.
Let's
that's a good one.
let's talk about both those games next week.
Yeah,
All right.
I think
literally a
because
perfect
I want to
game.
play some Mario 35, so I want to join in on that conversation. So
Yeah.
that'll be a good time. So shut up, Kahan. We're ending the show. Here we go.
God, you
Thank
talk
you
so much,
everybody
Kahan.
for. Thank you everybody for joining us for another exciting episode of Multiplayered. Remember, you can check us out every week. I gotta figure out what day we're gonna release these things. I think Wednesdays is gonna be good. Obviously, we're just getting right back into these, so still some kinks to work out, but we're working it out. So I'll let you guys know soon when we're gonna be releasing these.
yeah.
Sounds good.
But anyways, Hav, where can we find you?
Instagram Jumpman_Ortiz ORTIZ.
Kahan, geez,
Oh,
where can we
God.
find
Just put
you?
the text.
Oh, no.
just add.
It's an audio
Design. Just add. Oh, oh my God, it is, isn't it? All right, at DAMAVANDI design. There you go. On
You can find me right here on the Multiplayered podcast.
Hey, that's
Lovely.
easy.
And you can find me at ZachMatzGanis on Instagram. That's CACKMATZGANIS. Woo. That is
right.
our show. Thank you so much. Remember to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps out the show once you know when we are releasing these. And thank you so much. We will talk to you next week. Toodaloo.
We love you.
Donate to our OnlyFans.
Toodaloo.